Hey guys, Civilord here, back again with another review, and today we'll be taking a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Collectabuild Frost King from the either Frost King or Endless Winter Wave of McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures, whichever you want to call it. And since this guy has no packaging to speak of, before we get into the meat and taters of this review, we will talk about his lone accessory, which is this super duper, first and foremost, massive, but really, really cool looking, no pun intended, okay, maybe a little bit, ice sword. And this thing is almost as big as a figure. And to put it into perspective for you, here's the sword, and here is Black Adam. This sword is almost as big as a standard figure, so that's pretty crazy. He can hold it only in his right hand, and that's his only accessory. He doesn't get anything else because he is a collectabuild figure, so he doesn't come with a collectible trading card or a hockey puck stand, which you don't really need for this guy, but you know, if you are having some troubles, those will help him stand up quite a bit. And he does have the peg holes for it, so they will fit. The only thing that kind of bums me out is that he doesn't come with a collectible trading card, because I like to know more about this character. I don't really know jack squat about this character, and watching other reviews of this figure, I haven't really learned anything about this character, so I'm gonna probably have to look up this Endless Winter comic series and maybe see if I can find a breakdown of who this guy is, what the story's all about. My guess is he's like Mr. Freeze, but a little bit more psychotic, and probably more evil, because Mr. Freeze is trying to help his wife, while this guy probably just wants to take over the world. So, you know, based off his design, he looks a lot like one of the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, so we're going off of that. But taking a closer look at the Frost King here, and I mean, seriously, he looks like he just came north of the wall. This is ridiculous. This is, in a good way, I mean. This is ridiculous in a good way, but it's still ridiculous. I mean, what the... He is a White Walker on steroids. That's all there is to it. But he is a really awesome looking White Walker on steroids, with a super awesome design, with these spiked shoulder pads, this cape here. He's got this big skull on his belt. He's got this gauntlet here with all these spikes coming out of it. He's got these demon horns on his head. Black metal face paint. I mean, this guy looks like he listens to way too much Darkthrone, if I'm being completely honest. That or he's Lobo's grandpa, which I guess that's a possibility too. Again, I'd like to find out more about this guy, because he looks a lot like Lobo, but he also looks a lot like the dude from Dark Funeral. So I don't know what they're going for here, but I don't mind the DC universe taking the kind of death metal, black metal, heavy metal, dark metal, whatever you want to call it now, approach to the characters. As long as they stop doing woke crap like I'm Not Starfire. That was crap. But at any rate, this isn't a comic review, this is a figure review. But as far as this guy's articulation is concerned, he can look side to side pretty well. These horns are, they're stiff. They're not going to warp on you, but they are flexible, but be careful. And his beard does get out of the way. His arms are on the little ball pegs, and he's built a little bit more like the Mega Figs, as to where he doesn't have the little cap piece in the socket. So you get a little bit more extra range in there. You can lift his arm up. You can't do a T-pose, like a Jesus Christ pose, but you can lift his arm up and back down. I will say, my only gripe with this figure is I wish the ratchets and the hinges for the shoulders were a little tighter. But really, it's not terrible. It's okay. They will maintain a pose just because of all the stuff that's causing friction up in here between the cape and the shoulder pad. The shoulder pad will pretty much keep the arm up. With that sword in the hand, probably not, but you're not displaying it that way, it should do the job. But if I haven't said it already, his shoulders do rotate. And you know, if these are loose, you can't always put a dab of Elmer's glue in there. Tighten it up a bit. His elbows, they do have a single hinge. That gets you just about 90s, that's not terrible. On top of that, he does have rotation. And to be honest with you, the only thing I had to heat up on this guy were his hips and his head. Just to attach them to the figure. Everything else I was able to get to move pretty easily. So no heat required with this one, which is nice. Unlike Bane, who it felt like I had to heat up dang near every joint. He does have a hinge in the wrist. But unfortunately, it's an in and out hinge. I guess that'd be my only other gripe with this guy. Gripe. Wouldn't mind having some grapes now, if I'm being quite honest. I'm kind of hungry. But he does have an in and out hinge in the wrist for the sword holding hand. It's not as big of a deal over here. But since you only got that one axis, it kind of limits posing a bit. But I don't really pose my stuff too much, just for the videos. And then he also has a swivel in there as well. But yeah, it's kind of whatever. Could be useful, could not be. And I don't remember if I heated up the hand to get the sword in there. I may have, but don't quote me on that. It should be worth noting you can rotate his cape a little bit, which you'll see in the final thoughts segment of this video if you weren't paying attention to the URL. He has a waist swivel. It was kind of loose, but once you peg the legs in, it's not floppy at all. It's pretty tight. It's just a swivel. You're not going to get any forward and back out of that. As far as his hips go, you can get pretty decent range out of these. So they can move out. They can move back down. They can move forward and back. He does have a little quiver of a thigh cut in there. Single joint at the knee. Or double jointed knee, excuse me. And he does have a little bit of the Cliffs of Dover going on, but nothing too bad. Again, they keep taking chunks out of the thigh, which just looks kind of weird to me. So I wouldn't mind if they stopped doing that, but other than that, knee joints are getting better. And since he has single elbows, he doesn't have any trenches going on there, so I much prefer that. And as far as his boots go, no boot swivel, which kind of sucks because he could have maybe benefited from that, but his ankles are on nice tight ratchets. So yeah, he doesn't have that ball hinge thing going on, but he does have really nice ankle articulation as far as stiffness goes. You don't got to worry about him getting weak in the feet, that's for sure. Even though he does have all this body weight, these are really nice tight ratchet joints. He does have an ankle rocker though that works pretty well, and he's got a toe joint, and yeah, he's got a detented one and kind of a whatever one, much like the rest of the figures in this wave with the exception of Jon Stewart. But there is your Frost King. Collect-a-build figure. He's awesome. I dig him. But yeah, he could have been a little better as far as articulation goes. I would have liked maybe a boot swivel, but that's being nitpicky because this is, I think, my favorite collect-a-build figure we've gotten in this line so far. He is awesome, man. He's hefty, he's chunky, he's dang near the size of a Mega Fig. But with that being said, we're going to compare him to the two Mega Figs from the Justice League movie, the rest of the wave, and of course our two regulars. I'm not going to pull out any Marvel Legends Build-A-Figures because, in my opinion, those are just inferior product compared to this because of the price points and the amount of figures you need to buy to build one of those. This guy, you needed to pick up 4 figures, and while one of them was kind of a straight reissue, it did fix some things that the previous version had wrong with it, particularly in the torso articulation. So again, the Todd Father just seems to be outdoing himself and trying to do better. Even though I did have some QC issues a few months back with some figures like Lobo and Swamp Thing and that gosh darn infected Shazam, which I haven't bought another one, for those of you wondering about that. Aside from that little pocket of hiccups, I've really been enjoying this DC Multiverse line. I just got the Rebirth Batman. He's pretty solid. I just finished this guy. He's pretty solid. So I think we're getting back to normal, as it were, with this DC Multiverse line. Knock on wood that it stays that way. I haven't picked up that Horse Wave yet, but I'm looking forward to that when I finally do pick it up. I would like a King Shark too, but I don't know. They keep releasing that thing in ways that I just can't afford to buy it. So, at any rate, let us now move on and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, here's our new Collectabuild Frost King, next to a couple of Mega Figs, just to give you guys an idea of how much bigger these Collectabuild figures are starting to get in this McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line. And while he's not quite as tall as Darkseid and Steppenwolf from the Justice League movie line, he's getting there. If you go to the top of his horns, he's about the same height as Darkseid, so that is pretty impressive for a Collectabuild figure in this line. Next up, and for those of you keeping track, here is our Collectabuild Frost King next to the rest of the Endless Winter Wave from the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line. And I gotta tell ya, this wave was kind of a mixed bag for me, but I had a lot of fun putting this guy together and collecting all these figures. But if I were to give you guys a quick overview of this wave, I would most likely have to rank the Frost King as my favorite, then Black Adam, then the Endless Winter Batman, then the Endless Winter Wonder Woman, and last but certainly not least, in this case anyways, the John Stewart, mostly because he's just a re-release of a figure we got last year, but he does have some tweaks to him to make him a little bit more interesting. And last but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibulus, the 11 Spawn, who's not towering over everyone today because the Frost King is a Collectabuild figure after all. So with that being said, time to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and out of all of the Collectabuild figures I have put together from the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line, I'm 110% confident in saying that the Frost King here is by far my absolute favorite of the bunch. Kind of surprising considering I know absolutely nothing about this character other than he looks like some total Norwegian black metal shit. I mean, just look at this figure. That's definitely the vibe I'm getting. That or the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, for those of you who want a more popular reference for a change. But yeah, I just love the aesthetic on this guy. And the construction, I think, is probably one of, if not the best we've seen in the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line. The only major gripe I have with this figure, and it's really just a nitpicky thing, is that I wish he had more posability in the wrists and maybe a little bit more in the feet. He doesn't have any kind of extra rotation in the hands and feet like a lot of the other figures in the Multiverse line, so he lacks a little bit of posability, which I think this guy could have utilized really, really well. I mean, even a boot cut would have been quite substantial for this figure, but I think I got him in a cool enough pose, no pun intended, okay, maybe a little bit, without those added points of articulation, so, you know, it's a nitpick, it's there. And does anyone think this guy looks like Lobo's grandpa? I mean, he's got the face paint and the beard and everything. I don't know. We're picking at straws at this point. I love this figure. I highly suggest you put the effort in to try and complete him. I know he's kind of hard to find now, since that Batman display at Walmart's really the only place I've seen this wave. But hopefully other places like Target and GameStop, and of course the online retailers will get this wave soon, so you can collect and build this awesome collect-to-build Frost King figure. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. And if you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.